Nuclear was a bad word in the environmental movement for decades. For many, it still is. But now, with the world desperate for electricity that doesn't warm the earth, nuclear is back. And some leaders in the North Country think our region could be home to the next nuclear plant. A preliminary push to attract New York's bet on nuclear. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, July 11th. First up, the deadly floods in Texas are bringing more attention to weather alerts and communicating them to the public. New York State has a dedicated team to push information about severe weather to emergency managers. As Jimmy Vielkind reports for the New York Public News Network, officials say it helps save lives in flash flooding events.
So we've got the 7-day forecast. We have the space weather, the tropical.
New data come in every 5 minutes. They come from rain gauges, radar maps, and satellite images. In a windowless room at the University at Albany, meteorologists like Allison Finch are refining their forecasts and looking for possible risks. This is the State Weather Risk Communication Center, the first in the nation facility launched in 2023 and will be fully staffed later this month. Center Director Nick Basel explains the work.
Our job here is to take that data and translate it into something that state officials or emergency managers who are not trained in meteorology can more easily digest and use for their own purposes.
The center's work often goes unnoticed. But after flash floods in Texas killed more than 100 people, Basel says it's important for protecting New Yorkers. That means looking for vulnerable places in risky areas.
Ideally, we can do things like pick out the campgrounds that are within that zone and email state parks and let them know, hey, these dozen campsites are going to be possibly susceptible to flash flooding.
New York got serious about severe weather more than a decade ago. Rain from tropical storms Lee and Irene caused floods in the Catskills and Adirondacks in 2011. A year later, Superstorm Sandy devastated parts of New York City and Long Island. Governor Hochul in 2023 showed off the new Weather Risk Communication Center to NBC's famous meteorologist, Al Roker.
These systems don't know geographic boundaries. They just sweep across our country. And to the extent that we can prepare a model for other governors to adopt and implement, then we're all going to be safer.
She said other states could follow New York's lead. In Albany, I'm Jimmy Vielkind for the New York Public News Network.
President Trump's rescission package that would claw back $9.4 billion in previously approved funding will likely be voted on by the Senate next week. It could mean the loss of $1 billion for public radio and TV. Amy Feiereisel has more.
New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand said in a press conference on Thursday that the rescission package will likely pass along party lines. Senate Republicans have the majority. The Democrat pointed to the recent vote on Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
We only got 3 Republicans to vote no. We needed 4. So I don't see 4 emerging to vote no on the rescission package either. They've just had no spine, no willingness to stand up to him.
The bulk of the rescission package would cut international development and aid, including refugee assistance, climate projects, and USAID programs. It would also take back $1.1 billion from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. That would essentially cut all federal funding for PBS and NPR stations, including about $300,000 a year from North Country Public Radio. Gillibrand says the clawback would disproportionately affect rural television and radio stations, whose budgets are more reliant on federal funds. She said she's trying to talk to Republican senators whose constituents would lose access.
I'm just not optimistic. President Trump has been very effective in bullying the Senate and bullying Republicans specifically in his party.
Some Senate Republicans have floated making changes to the package to reduce cuts. It would then go back to the House. But there's a tight timeline. If the rescission request isn't passed by July 18th, which is next Friday, it would expire. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
NCPR is an affiliate of NPR and a part of the public radio system. We cover ourselves just like we would cover any story. No executive had input into this reporting. Local leaders from around the region gathered in Alexandria Bay this week to learn more about nuclear energy. It's in response to the state announcing its intent to build a new power plant. As Catherine Wheeler reports, they see jobs and economic growth if they can persuade the state to choose the North Country.
A couple of weeks ago, Governor Kathy Hochul sent shockwaves through New York.
I am proud to announce that I'm directing the New York State Power Authority to develop and construct a brand new advanced nuclear plant in upstate New York. Announcing that here today, and we're going to get it done.
It came as somewhat a surprise. New York actually decommissioned a nuclear power plant in the Hudson Valley just a couple of years ago. But Hochul says the state needs this plant to meet its clean energy goals, which it's very behind on. She says it would produce at least a gigawatt of energy, enough to power about 750,000 homes. Immediately, the big question was out there. Where is this thing gonna go?
In the North Country, we're never gonna have an opportunity unless we raise our hand, we step out there and say, hey, we're here.
On Tuesday, Assemblyman Scott Gray gathered more than 100 local leaders from around the North Country at Bonnie Castle Resort in Alexandria Bay. It was an informational session to talk about nuclear energy and the opportunities it presents, jobs and economic development. They heard from nuclear advocates, scientists, state agency representatives, and union members. Speakers talked about how nuclear energy works, how facilities are constructed, and addressed concerns about safety and nuclear waste. Gray says it was just a baby step, but he says it shows the state that the North Country is laying the groundwork.
I think you saw a receptivity, right, from the community that is saying, hey, listen, this isn't the bad boogeyman that, it's perceived to be, and that we're willing to step up, we're willing to talk about this, and we're willing to listen and engage.
At the meeting, an official from the New York Power Authority said the state is still building the team that will oversee the project, but they're already looking for communities to show interest. For the right spot, the state says it wants to see strong community support, and it'll consider other factors like the workforce, land, and current infrastructure. Town of Champion Supervisor John Peck says the North Country could check a lot of those boxes. Peck says a major nuclear power plant could bring a lot of steady, good-paying jobs and lower people's electricity bills.
You talk about the things that affect people personally and help them understand that this is going to be a generational transition. That's the kind of things that we've been waiting for in the North Country.
Some are already pitching potential locations. One is Fort Drum. Last year, it was reported that the state and Army were discussing building a small nuclear reactor there to power the base. St. Lawrence County legislator David Forsyth says Messina would be perfect. Earlier this year, a company that had already prepared a site for a green hydrogen plant scrapped its plans.
The land's cleared. I think it's ready to go, and it's right next to NIPA. Plus the transmission line, look at the smart path. It's all been constructed, housed right through there. So I think it'd be hard-pressed to find a better spot, really.
A lot of elected officials walked into the meeting with concerns about safety. Waddington Mayor Mike Zagrabelny said he got some of those questions answered, but he still wonders if the state could choose this region for nuclear energy development.
Would it really be possible to have it sited in the North Country? And we don't know the answer to that, but I'm hopeful with the amount of support that was here. And so that question didn't get answered, but I think it got fueled.
Local government leaders say they're taking the information they gathered back home to discuss with their communities. Gray says he'll be looking to gauge their willingness and what more they need to know. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio in Alexandria Bay.
One more quick story. A fun event going on tomorrow in the Thousand Islands. It's a paddling poker run for charity. Trevor Garlock is one of the organizers.
Everybody gets their kayaks and their skiffs and paddle boards down by the beach and right there in the village of Alexandria Bay. We're right across from Bolt Castle, so we're overlooking the river, Millionaires Row, the Thousand Islands. We always have a big send-off. The Alex Bay Fire Department will be there, usually with their big fireboat and the water cannons throwing water in the air.
And then everyone takes off at once. It's the annual Paddle for Betterment, which raises money for local people in need. Think people with high healthcare bills, cancer treatment, surgeries, that kind of thing.
We actually have our recipients, many of them show up. We tell a little bit of their story and they get to talk. And you see firsthand where those dollars are going. And so it's an amazing weekend where we've got these 3 different events where people are having a lot of fun. but seeing the direct and immediate impact of where those dollars go to and staying local in the North Country.
That's the Paddle for Betterment starting at 9 tomorrow morning at the Alexandria Bay Beach. We have more news through the weekend at ncpr.org. Music today by Lost in Beijing of Keane and Hart, Cox, and Legros of Malone. Have a great weekend. I'm David Summerstein.